Hi everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of what I'm sure are very busy days to come and chat to us and listen to us. So I'm going to kick off today with a question that I've been sitting on for honestly quite some time. And that question is, how can our memories help us connect more deeply with our climate futures? Now, George Monbiot is a brilliant author. If any of you read his book, Out of the Wreckage, it's a great one. And something that he talks about in this book is this concept of humans being drawn to narratives. So, admittedly, he was talking about getting us out of neoliberalism. I won't go there today. But what he was really trying to get across to us is that humans are drawn to change that we can envision. We are drawn to narratives. We are drawn to a future that we can actually see ourselves in. And when we're considering our climate futures, I want to take the time now to start with, where are we now? Where are we in this narrative before we consider our climate future? So what's our climate reality? And honestly, it looks a lot like this at the moment. So many of the dominant narratives about our climate futures are pretty dire. Most of us, I'm sure, in the room know that the research is there and it looks bad. We've had those projections for decades and we're living them now. And not only that, but we have our neighbours, we have our obligations. So many of our Pacific neighbours are living these impacts much more than we have already felt, but that's not the case for all of us. Like Stu was just showing, we have people up in New South Wales now whose communities, livelihoods, everything really is being uprooted by these floods. And that's the situation, right? Like this is what we're dealing with, and it's tough and there's a lot to process. And if you have a phone, like lucky you, because you're getting an endless live stream of harrowing climate content to your every beck and call. So there's a lot to process. And I kept coming back to this because in my work as a public policy student and also working in climate tech, I deal with climate change on a day-to-day basis. And in doing so, that passion that actually got me there in the first place, it just became a little bit too overwhelming for me. And at a certain point, to me, it was better off just shoving those emotions and that passion that had actually morphed into climate anxiety under the rug in favour of making the day-to-day more tolerable. So in doing so and getting myself some climate anxiety, I joined the 81% of Gen Z and millennials who are now tangling with these emotions, this climate anxiety, which for something that is such a new phenomenon, that is a pretty confronting statistic. So there's a lot to process, and I kept coming back to this question of how can we bring joy back into it? And I do not say this in pursuit of ignorance, and I do not say this as any sort of dismissal of pragmatism or realism, because I think most of us here agree that we need climate change mitigation. We need adaptation at the forefront of everything to drive us forward, and I intend to do that as part of my work. But I want to really underscore the power of "and" in this. Yes, the dominant narratives are really scary, and it is really stressful. And we can still try and find a way to bring joy back into it, and that's all right. So this is really what took me to a place where I kept coming back to this concept of memory, and memory is something that's really powerful, something that can connect us to place and something that we all share. It's really human in like the simplest possible way. We all have it. So I'm going to share one with you now, and I'm also going to share a photo. Pretty stock standard East Coast beach. Nothing to tell it apart unless you've got a super keen eye. I also want to share a memory. Every summer growing up as a kid, I went up to a beach in southern Thawa country, so southern New South Wales. Maybe a week or two at a time every year, but it feels like I lived half my childhood there. I could tell you how long it takes me to walk from one end of the beach to the other. The shallow river at one end where I learned to fish, and the craggy red rocks that always really hurt my feet. Tough life. And the campfires that littered the beach at night where I'd throw dried seaweed to make fireworks. So I'm going to show you another photo now. Same beach, but I do this only to make the point that in the 15, 20 seconds of me sharing that little story with you, sharing my little memory, your understanding of what a place can mean to someone else that isn't you has changed so drastically. And while I was speaking, it's very likely that you were thinking of a place that holds that sort of meaning to you. And maybe some of you were even thinking of the same place, which is also pretty cool. So many of us in this room were born overseas. We grew up in places that aren't Melbourne, And if we think of all the places we're connected to from this room alone, through memory, it's pretty incredible. And this is really the storytelling that I'm aiming to harness with my project, storytelling that has been at the pillar of so many cultures for generations and really millennia, not in the least the First Nations cultures that have stewarded the land that we're all on today. And so that's what I'm sort of tying all into my Wattle project. My project is going to be a memory archive of people telling their stories of place in the way that I just did, in a way that can really allow us to connect with each other in a really simple way that grounds us, gives us a sense of community, helps us understand where we are now. And through creating that space to better connect to our emotional connections to place in the past, we can better understand our emotional connection, and not only our connection, but our obligation to the future, to future generations who have the right to go to a beach that looks nondescript to all of you and hurt their feet on the rocks, because that is their right. And through this project, I hope that we can just bring a little bit of joy back into it. Thank you.